So we started class today with a practice check on learning. This was not for a grade. This wasn't something people did individually. We just looked at what one would have been like for the first few lines of the Aeneid. And so the first question I gave some text and then highlight the invocation of the muse and the epic question. So of course we said that was Musa mihi causas memora, not just the word muse, but the thing we're asking her to do. And then you can pause this at any time, right, and practice your own answers to these questions. But the epic question then is the last bit here. Are there such great angers for heavenly minds? Do heavenly minds have such great angers? And then the next one, a little bit weird. There are 7 to 8, there's actually 9, I guess, words that either grammatically modify, right? That means an adjective that describes in case, number, and gender, or a participle that matches him in case, number, and gender, or that logically refer to Aeneas. So like if it said the adjective tired, right? Or having been worn out or something. Or if it said the smart dude or this dude, and that was referring to Aeneas, that's what we're looking for. So noun or adjectives or participles that modify him, or nouns that refer to him, or I guess pronouns that refer to him. So again, here's the text. Pause this if you want to try on your own. But the first one, of course, Wiram, right? He is the man that we are talking about in the I Sing of Arms, and a man. He's also the guy who, right? He's the who is referring to, the antecedent of qui. He is being described by this, modified by this adjective primus, and by this, you could argue that this is an adjective, like exiled, or that it's a participle, exiled, or that it's a noun, meaning a refugee. Either way, it is referring to Aeneas, right? Exiled because of fate, a refugee by fate, something like that. That is him. He's also the Ile here, right? He's that guy. And he's also that guy having been tossed about a lot on both land and sea. And then the group kind of paused a little bit and they were looking for other words. They were looking for one in the next line. It doesn't mean there's a word in every line that refers to him. This next line is about Juno, I think, so not about Aeneas. So picking back up, again, there's a trend here, right? These things are masculine, singular, typically nominative if he's the subject, but if he's the direct object, they'd be accusative, like Wiram. So we're looking for words like that. And so, yep, he's passus, having suffered. This verb looks, it's deponent, right? So it looks like a perfect passive participle, like jactatus, having been tossed, but it is active because it's deponent, so having suffered many things also in war, even in war at bello. And somebody suggested genus because it ends in us, right? But that's a race, right? It's the Latin race. So that is not Aeneas specifically. It actually doesn't, Aeneas can't be Latin, but he will found the Latin race, right? He's also not patres, he's not fathers. That's something that he's going to found as well, or something that's going to come from his actions, right? He's not the high walls of Rome either. He's not the wounded divinity. He's not the one mourning, though that is nominative singular. It's referring to our new nominative, the queen of the gods, right? He's not the misfortunes, but he is the man. And he's also being described or modified by the adjective famous or distinguished. And you could argue that we want to keep the pietate with the insignem because he's not just distinguished, he's distinguished with respect to his piety or famous for his piety. So whether or not you want to include the pietate, it modifies insignem, right? Or it goes with insignem as an ablative of respect. But the insignem definitely modifies the Wiram, and Wiram refers to Aeneas. We also then discussed what would be the verbs that Aeneas performs in this passage, though it's not a question on the check on learning. We said he came, right, to the Lavinian shores. We said until he should found a city and bring his gods to Latium. And that's it. Those are the things that he did. He came and he founded and he brought some things. And the other verbs, I think, belong to our girl Juno. Then we looked at another passage. It says highlight 2 words for the sea. They are already highlighted up here. We had autumn, into the deep, right? The deep sea. We had pontus here in the ablative case, the sea. And then we argued that the sprays of salt by metonymy is referring to the sea, though it's not technically a word for the sea. Use of the ablative fatis in 39, I am forbidden by the fates, so that must be an ablative of agent. You could argue means, but the fates in the plural are people, so ablative of agent. What is another Latin name for Pallas? That's Minerva. You probably know her more famously as Athena, but we're going to stick with Latin names for the Aeneid, so Pallas, Minerva. And Argium, it was like Pallas, question mark, was able to burn up a fleet of Argives, a fleet of the genitive plural Argium. In this next little bit here, we said that flammato, ablative, could be dative, but probably ablative singular, either masculine or neuter, definitely going with corde, which is a third declension neuter noun. Cor cordis gives us the English word cordial. The Greek word also gives us science terms, right? It's related to the Latin word is related to it, but the Greek word is that card root. Anyway, so it's her heart that is inflamed, right? The goddess tossing, mulling over these things, such things in her inflamed heart. A chiasmus that we talked about in class was wasto, antra with rex aeolus on the inside. And then interlocked word order is kind of the opposite of chiasmus. Chiasmus is an ABBA word order. Interlocked is an ABAB word order. And so looking closely at this, where wasto goes with antro, those are my A's. King Aeolus in the nominative are my B's. That's a chiasmus. But in the next couple of lines, we have some good or bad interlocked word orders. See, it's nice when not only is the word order noticeable, but there's like a significant meaning to it where this has created a picture of Aeolus inside of his cave, so it's a really nice chiasmus. You could look at line 54, and probably the first thing that stands out is like winkles and carcere are ablative, and frenot is a verb, and then premit is also a verb. And at first that looks like a chiasmus, verb, ablative, ablative, verb, but logically the chains in the prison cell are going with frenot, right? He restrains them with chains in a prison cell. And if we expand our field of view, we would also notice imperio. And so it's really like ablative verb and ablatives verb. So it looks like an interlocked word order in that regard. And it's significant because it's like these things go together and these things go together, but maybe it's not an interlocked, but grammatically it's an interlocked because it's ablative verb and ablatives verb. So ablative verb, ablatives verb. The line above it doesn't look like a significant word order. It looks like a normal word order because we've got the wrestling going with the winds and the resounding going with the storms. So it doesn't look like either a chiasmus or an interlocked / synchesis. But again, grammatically, we've got the adjective or participle going with the noun, and then we've got the noun going with the adjective here. So grammatically, that is also an interlocked word order, but not as noticeable because the things that go together are together. Anyway, that's it for that. So let's begin looking at the text. And we got pretty far in class, but I'm only going to go over some of it because we'll repeat Juno's speech in class tomorrow. And so we left off with these guys, these winds, right, that he restrains with chains and a prison cell. And they are referred to as those indignant ones, those angry ones, those upset beings, i.e., the winds, but now they're the subjects. And we get, so those indignant ones, they do something. Magno cum murmure montis, with a great rumble of the mountain. What do? They roar around their enclosures. You could also put the montis with the circum claustra and say they rumble with a great, or they roar with a great rumble around their enclosures of the mountain. But either way, Kelsa in this next bit looks like it goes with arche. Again, we're always going to read to at least a solid punctuation mark. Kelsa sedet Aeolus arche, sceptra tenens, molit quanimos et temperat iras. So we've got our subject, Aeolus. He sits on his high citadel. You could translate it as throne, but a citadel is more like a stronghold. It's the second time that word has appeared, so we should know it. He sits on a high citadel, holding his scepter, and he molits, he mollifies or soothes their spirits or their minds, and he tempers their angers, right, or controls their angers. Nifakiat, subjunctive, if he didn't do this, if he weren't to do this, something would happen. The seas and the lands, those are accusative. So what would they do to the seas and the lands? Surely they, being swift, or they would swiftly carry the seas and the lands and the vast sky with them. It would carry those things off with them. And they would sweep whereat through the breezes. Oh man, it's a good thing Aeolus controls them. But there's one more safety measure, and that's that the Pater Omnipotens, the omnipotent father, that's Jupiter, right, hid them in dark caves or in black caves, fearing, describing Pater, just like omnipotens, present participle, fearing this, he did that. And what else did he do? He placed a mass, like a heavy mass. And montis, it's a long is, which shouldn't exist in the third declension, except when it's an alternative form of the a's ending. So, and he placed a mass and tall mountains or high mountains on top. And he gave them a king who, fordere certo et premere laxas sciret dare iusas habenas, who, subjunctive verb, would know. And you can look for an indirect statement after the verb to know, or you can have infinitives that aren't an indirect statement, but rather mean like how. Who would know how to restrain them with a fixed treaty, or sorry, like both, how to restrain them with a fixed treaty, and how to give them loose reins or free reins when ordered, or having been ordered. So we're using sciret twice. He would know both how to restrain them and how to give them free reins, having been ordered, or when ordered. It's a weird line. I would love it if laxas came after sciret. It doesn't, right? I want sciret to like separate the two things that he knows how to do. Laxas looks like it goes with the first part, but the et tells me that it goes with the second part, and it's the sciret that I'm having to like bring to the first part and keep for the second part. My participle, having been ordered, can easily be translated as when ordered. I could also put the when with the no, like and would know when to give them loose reins, having been ordered. So Aeolus is in charge of the winds. He's not in charge of the seas, but he is in charge of the winds. And to him, or to whom, then Juno, as a suppliant, we've seen that nominative like meaning as a whatever, or, you know, same case as our noun meaning as a suppliant. That's a person who prays to someone. To whom then Juno, as a suppliant, usa est, it's deponent, so it looks passive, but it is active, used, and it's a puffy verb, so it takes the ablative, used these voices, or these words, right? Used these words or these voices. And she speaks to him, she says, Aeole, in the vocative case, namque tibi diwum or diwum, either way, it's genitive, pater diwum et rex hominum, a lovely interlocked, right? Pater and rex are our nominatives with genitives attached to each one. A lovely interlocked describing our boy Jupiter. So we'll pick up with this speech tomorrow. Gratias.